Hey everybody, I came down late and anyways, apparently the meat jug is speaking. That would be the meat jug from the NDP. So here we go. Don't forget, these are people that side with the prime murderer of Canada, who is a tyrant and infringing on our freedoms. So here we go. I rewinded a little bit.
See what's clearly a crisis in our country. It's my first day back in Ottawa to see the siege of the city up close and personal, and I can understand all the stories that I've heard from residents and small businesses why they felt so scared and why they've been intimidated and harassed, and the impact on workers in Ottawa, but also the impact on workers by convoy protests at borders. This is really clearly a crisis, and it requires immediate attention. We are in this position, though, it should be clear, because of a failure of all levels of government to respond to the seriousness of this convoy. And it should also be clear that this convoy has always stated their goal is to replace elected officials, to attack democracy, to create chaos and mayhem. That has been their goal, and that remains their goal. They are very clearly and brazenly, unabashedly clear about their goal, which is and they continue to reiterate this goal. Organizers recently offered to create a coalition with some of the opposition parties. The fact that unelected people think they can replace the elected democracy with threats of intimidation, violence, and harassment.
Yeah, when there's a tyrant in control, it's our duty, meat jug.
This group is using violence and intimidation to directly cause a loss of jobs for
that
workers.
Would be you and the liberals.
Borders. And the fact that they are directly hurting workers, healthcare workers, truckers, clearly shows that these are not a group of people that are representing the interests of workers. The convoy is hurting workers, is hurting people. And we are always going to stand with people that are doing everything they can to keep us safe and healthy.
Bullshit.
Healthcare workers. We're going to stand with truckers that are trying to bring goods into the country that we need.
You're supporting a tyrant.
Manufacturing sector workers that are trying to put food on the table for their families. We're going to stand up for workers. And so we are very reluctant in providing our support. And we want to make sure that the support is clearly directed towards solving this crisis. And we're going to be very carefully monitoring every step of the way what the government does. And we'll be prepared to use all of the accountability mechanisms that are available to withdraw support if need be and to stop the application of this Emergency Act. So we're going to hear very carefully the parameters that the government's going to lay out in their speeches in the House. I have been briefed by the Prime Minister as well as other opposition leaders about the proposals, and our teams have been briefed. And so we are going to be very careful and very considerate about the application. And we want to make sure this government uses these powers appropriately. We're going to continue to be very carefully monitoring the impact on legitimate protests. We're going to be continually careful to make sure that counter-protesters that are standing up for their rights are not impacted by this. And so we share concerns by Canadians of the potential impact of overreach. And that's why we'll be carefully monitoring and using every tool we have to keep this government to account. But we know this is a moment for our country to
where the tyrant is going to get squashed.
This convoy from undermining democracy, stop this convoy from attacking workers and people and harassing residents. And we are going to stand up for people to make sure that they are safe and secure and that people's jobs are safe and secure. And finally, I just want to reiterate that New Democrats have been calling for a path out of this pandemic. And that path has to include investing in our healthcare system so that it is resilient and not up against the peril of collapsing every time there's an increased need. Our healthcare system needs to be resilient. Healthcare workers need to be supported. We need to have more staffing, better pay, and better supports in place for our workers, for our healthcare workers, so that we can get the help we need if we need it, if our loved ones need it. That's very vital in us getting past this pandemic. And then I guess the last point I want to also put forward is that there are a lot of legitimate frustrations that Canadians feel. Canadians have been going through a pandemic for over 2 years.
Stop using the pandemic. It's a
that has happened. People have done the right
government
thing,
overreach and force under a tyrant.
Have seen their
Stop
lives
talking
get worse
so stupid, meat
Things
jug.
have gotten worse, not better. And they've seen people at the very top actually make out like bandits in this pandemic. They've been able to increase their wealth. And so people are frustrated at the rigged system, at a rigged economy.
Yeah, you rigged it.
They're worse off.
You're part of the rigged system. We're part of the honest system.
Billionaires and multimillionaires continue to make more and more profits. That is frustrating to see. And so we want to continue to put forward real solutions that help out people to be able to afford a home, a roof over their head.
No, you don't. You support the liberals. You don't want these things for Canada.
We're going to fight to make sure those solutions
and we're going to fight you, meatjug.
And that we are working to fix the problems that people are faced with. Donc, aujourd'hui, c'est mon première fois.
Boy, isn't he a beauty, as Don Cherry would say.